Hey there, English learners. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, the place where we make learning English fun, practical, and effective. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or even an advanced learner looking to refine your skills, this episode is for you. I'm Adam, and as always, I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, Sophia.
Thank you, Adam. And hello, English learners. We know that one of the biggest struggles when learning English is finding the time to practice. Many of you tell us, I want to improve but I'm too busy, or I don't know what to do every day to improve my English.
Yes, and that's exactly what we're solving today. Imagine having a daily routine where learning English feels natural, like a part of your everyday life, rather than something stressful or overwhelming.
By the end of this episode, you'll have a complete morning, afternoon, and evening routine that fits into your schedule and actually helps you become fluent.
And the best part? You don't need hours of studying. Just a few simple habits done consistently can completely change the way you learn and speak English.
We'll also share real-life examples, practical tips, and vocabulary tricks that will help you think in English and speak with confidence.
Oh, and let's not forget, we have some interactive challenges for you today. So get ready to speak, think, and learn English actively as you listen.
So, if you're ready to transform the way you learn English, grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's build the perfect English learning routine together. Chapter 1. Why a daily routine is the key to fluency. Adam, let's start with one of the biggest struggles English learners face. Why is a daily routine so important for improving English? Many learners tell us they try to study, but then they forget things quickly, or they feel stuck like they aren't making progress. What's going wrong?
That's such a great question, Sophia. And honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons why people give up on learning English. They feel frustrated because they study for a few hours one day, but then they forget everything the next week. They don't realize that fluency isn't about how much time you study in one day. It's about how often you expose your brain to English. That's why consistency is more important than the total time you spend studying.
Exactly. And let's break this down even more. Imagine you want to get fit and lose weight. If you go to the gym once a month for 5 hours, do you think you'll see results?
No way. That's just going to make you tired and sore the next day, and you probably won't want to go back. But if you exercise for 20 minutes every day, your body will start to get stronger naturally over time.
Yes. And learning English works the exact same way. If you try to cram all your learning into one big study session, it won't stick. But if you practice a little bit every single day, your brain starts absorbing the language naturally, just like building muscle.
And here's another way to think about it. Imagine brushing your teeth.
Oh, I love this example.
Let's say someone only brushes their teeth once a week, but for 30 minutes. And another person brushes their teeth twice a day for 2 minutes. Who do you think will have healthier teeth?
Of course, the person who brushes twice a day, because they're doing it regularly.
Exactly. The same thing applies to learning English. If you practice English in small amounts every day, your brain gets used to it. And soon, English starts feeling natural to you.
That's so true. And one of the biggest reasons learners struggle is because they only practice English when they have time.
Right. And that's a huge mistake. If you just wait until you feel like it or until you have free time, guess what? You'll almost never do it.
That's why you need a routine. A daily routine makes sure you're practicing automatically without thinking about it.
Yes. And when you build a strong English habit, you don't have to force yourself to study. It just becomes part of your daily life.
Adam, I remember when I was learning Spanish. At first, I tried to memorize a long list of words every few days, but I would forget them so quickly. Then, I changed my method. I started listening to Spanish music every morning, reading one short paragraph in Spanish daily, and writing just 2 or 3 sentences about my day in Spanish. And after a few months, my Spanish felt so much more natural.
That's such a great example, Sophia. And that's exactly what we want our listeners to do. Add small, simple habits into their daily routine. You don't need to spend hours studying. Even 5 or 10 minutes a day will make a huge difference.
Vocabulary preview. 1. Consistency. Doing something regularly over time. Example. The key to fluency is consistency, not just studying once in a while. 2. Absorb. To take in and remember information naturally. Example. Your brain absorbs new words better when you see them in real-life situations. 3. Cramming. Trying to study too much at once. Example. Cramming English for hours won't help. Small daily practice is better. 4. Routine. A habit or sequence of actions you do regularly. Example. A strong English routine helps you improve faster. 5. Automatic. Something that happens naturally without thinking. Example. When you practice English daily, it starts feeling automatic. 6. Motivation. The feeling of wanting to do something. Example. If you waited for motivation, you might never start. A routine makes sure you practice.
Chapter 2. The Morning English Boost. Routine. Adam. Now that we've explained why a daily routine is important, let's dive deep into the first part of the day. Mornings. Mornings are so powerful because they set the tone for the rest of your day. Think about it. If you start your morning feeling lazy and unmotivated, chances are your entire day will follow the same pattern. But if you wake up with the right habits, you can train your brain to stay in English mode naturally. A lot of learners wake up, check their phones, scroll through social media, and maybe listen to music. It's their routine, and they do it without even thinking. But what if I told you that by making just a few small changes, you could turn these normal activities into powerful English learning opportunities? You don't need extra time, just a smarter way of doing things. That's exactly what we're going to show you today.
That's such a great point, Sophia. Most learners feel like they don't have time to study English, but the truth is, they just haven't optimized their daily habits. You don't need an extra hour in your day to practice English fluency. You just need to take the things you already do and adjust them slightly to work in your favor. Imagine if instead of scrolling through Instagram in your native language, you read an inspiring quote in English. Or if instead of watching random videos on YouTube, you watched a short, engaging English video. What if instead of thinking about your to-do list in your native language, you said it out loud in English while getting ready? Small changes like this train your brain to switch to English mode automatically. The best part? It doesn't feel like studying. You're not sitting at a desk with a book. You're simply living your life in English.
Exactly. And let's talk about why mornings are the perfect time for this. Your brain is like a sponge in the morning. It's fresh, it's recharged from sleep, and it's ready to absorb new information. If you expose yourself to English first thing in the morning, you're essentially priming your brain to process English more easily throughout the day. Studies show that what you do in the first hour after waking up affects your focus, motivation, and memory for the entire day. So, if you start your morning with an English boost, you'll feel more confident, more engaged, and more prepared to use English naturally. Plus, let's be honest, if you don't make time for English in the morning, you'll probably keep pushing it back all day until you eventually don't do it at all. So, why not make it the first thing you do?
So, let's talk about how you can actually do this. The first thing I recommend is listening to English while getting ready. This is one of the easiest and most effective ways to add English into your morning because it requires no extra effort. You're already brushing your teeth, making coffee, or choosing what to wear, so why not make that time more useful by exposing yourself to English? And the best part? You don't even need to be fully focused. Your goal isn't to understand every single word. It's just to let your ears absorb the sounds, pronunciation, and natural sentence structures. Even if you're only half listening, your brain is still processing the language.
I love that. And here's what's really important: choosing the right content for your morning listening. You don't want something too complex that requires full concentration. The goal is to ease into English and immerse yourself naturally. Here are some great options. Podcasts, like this one. Short, easy-to-follow conversations. YouTube videos. English learning channels, daily vlogs, or news recaps. Audiobooks, something interesting but not too difficult. Music in English, find the lyrics and follow along. If you start your day with passive listening, your brain gets used to English without any stress. And remember, you don't need to understand every single word. Just let the language flow into your ears. The more you listen, the more natural English will feel when you speak.
That's a fantastic tip. And now, let's move on to the second step: speaking. I know that for many learners, speaking in the morning feels awkward because they don't have a conversation partner. But here's the secret: you don't need a partner to practice speaking. One of the best fluency tricks is to talk to yourself in English. It might sound strange at first, but it's incredibly powerful. So, here's what you do. As soon as you wake up, say your plans for the day out loud in English. Even if it's just a few sentences, this helps your brain start thinking in English immediately. For example, you can say, "Today I have a meeting at 10 a.m. After lunch, I need to go grocery shopping. Tonight, I'll relax and watch a movie." The key is to speak without hesitation. And if you forget a word, don't stop. Instead of saying nothing, try to describe the word. If you don't remember how to say laundry, just say, "I need to wash my clothes." If you forget appointment, just say, "I have to see the doctor." The goal isn't perfection, it's to get comfortable speaking freely.
I love that. And here's a challenge for our listeners. Tomorrow morning, as soon as you wake up, say your first thought in English. It doesn't have to be complicated. Even something like "I'm so tired" or "I need coffee" is enough. The key is to get your brain to switch to English mode immediately.
That's such a simple but effective habit. Now let's add one more powerful step: reading. I know mornings can be busy, but you don't need to read a full book. Even just 1 or 2 minutes of reading in the morning can help you introduce new vocabulary and get familiar with natural sentence structures.
Exactly. And here are some great ways to add reading to your morning routine. Read a motivational quote in English. Check an English news headline. Read an Instagram post or blog in English. Even just a few sentences will expose you to new words and phrases naturally.
And finally, let's talk about one of the most important steps: thinking in English. If you can train your brain to think in English, you'll stop translating and start speaking more fluently.
A great way to do this is while eating breakfast. Instead of thinking in your native language, try to describe your surroundings in English. Look at your food and say, "This coffee smells amazing. I'm eating toast with jam. It's a beautiful morning." Even if you just think these sentences silently, it will train your brain to use English automatically.
All right, let's recap. Here's your morning English routine. 1. Listen to English while getting ready. 2. Say your plans out loud. 3. Read a few sentences in English. 4. Think in English while having breakfast. Try this for 1 week and I promise, you'll see a huge improvement.
Chapter 3. Using English throughout the day. So, we've talked about the morning routine and how to start your day in English. But now comes the big challenge. How do we keep English in our daily life when we're busy? A lot of learners think, "I don't have time to study during the day because of work, school, or daily responsibilities." But the truth is, you don't need extra time. You just need to make English part of the things you already do. That's the secret to fluency. You don't need to sit at a desk for hours. You can learn and use English while doing everyday tasks.
Exactly. English should not be something you only practice in a study session. If you want to improve faster, you need to surround yourself with English in every possible way. The easiest way to do this? Change your environment. Look at your phone. Is it still in your native language? If so, change your phone settings to English right now. This small action will help you see English every single time you unlock your phone. Your weather updates, your social media, your app notifications, all in English. It's a super simple but effective way to train your brain to think in English naturally.
That's such a powerful tip. And let's go further. Don't just change your phone language, change what you consume. Instead of checking the news in your native language, read a short news article in English. Instead of watching a random video on YouTube, watch an English vlog or a short learning video. It doesn't have to be a full-hour lecture. Even 2 to 3 minutes of English exposure will help keep the language fresh in your mind.
Absolutely. And here's another great way to use English during the day: small conversations. I know some of our listeners might be thinking, but Adam, I don't have anyone to practice English with. And I get it. Not everyone has an English-speaking friend or colleague. But here's the good news. You don't need one. You can still have small English interactions throughout the day. For example, if you go to a coffee shop, instead of ordering in your native language, order in English. Even if the barista doesn't speak English, just saying, "Can I have a coffee, please?" gives you real-life practice. If you work in an office, greet your colleagues in English. Just a simple, "Hey, how's your day?" or "Good morning" helps keep English in your routine. The more you say small things in English, the easier it gets.
I love that. And here's another powerful technique: thinking in English throughout the day. A lot of learners struggle with fluency because they still think in their native language and translate in their head. But if you want to speak faster, you need to train your brain to think directly in English. And the best way to do that? Describe things in your head in English as you go about your day. For example, instead of thinking, "I need to go to the store" in your native language, train yourself to think, "I'm heading to the grocery store to buy some vegetables." If you see a car driving by, instead of describing it in your native language, say in your mind, "That's a red car. It's moving really fast."
That's a great habit. And to make it even more fun, you can challenge yourself. Throughout the day, whenever you do something, ask yourself in English, "What am I doing right now?" Then answer in English. For example, if you're walking to lunch, ask yourself, "Where am I going?" and say, "I'm going to a restaurant to eat lunch." If you're on a bus, ask yourself, "Where am I?" and answer, "I'm on the bus, heading home." This technique forces your brain to think in English instead of translating.
That's such an effective way to make English a natural part of your thinking process. And another fun trick is to narrate your actions as if you're explaining your day to a friend. Imagine that someone asks you, "Hey, what did you do today?" Instead of answering in your native language, answer in English in your mind, even if no one is around. For example, "Today I woke up early, made a cup of coffee, and listened to a podcast while getting ready. Then I went to work and had a really busy morning." Just doing this regularly trains your brain to recall words faster and structure sentences naturally.
I love that. And let's add another powerful daily habit: writing your to-do list in English. If you normally write your daily tasks in your native language, switch to English. Write down, "Buy groceries," "Finish my work project," "Call my friend," "Go for a run." Not only does this help with vocabulary, but it also makes English a natural part of your day.
Yes. And for those of you who love journaling, you can even write a short diary entry at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be long, just a few sentences about what you did and how you felt. "Today was a good day. I had a lot of work, but I also had time to relax and read a book." This simple exercise helps reinforce the vocabulary you learned that day.
Okay, so let's quickly summarize everything we talked about. Here's how you can use English throughout your day without extra effort. 1. Change your phone settings to English so you see English every time you unlock your phone. 2. Replace native language content with English content, news, YouTube videos, podcasts. 3. Have small conversations in English. Order food, greet people, say simple phrases. 4. Think in English instead of translating. Describe things in your head. 5. Write your to-do list and daily notes in English. Make it a habit.
If you follow these steps, you'll start to think, speak, and react in English naturally throughout the day. And the best part? You're not adding extra study time. You're just making small adjustments to what you already do. Chapter 4. The 5-minute speaking habit. Speaking is probably the most challenging part of learning English for most people. You might feel confident listening, reading, and even writing, but when it comes to speaking, many learners hesitate. They either feel nervous, afraid of making mistakes, or simply don't have anyone to practice with. But here's the truth. You don't need a language partner to practice speaking. You can improve dramatically just by training your mouth and brain to think and respond in English every single day. That's why today we're going to talk about the 5-minute speaking habit, a simple but powerful technique that will help you become more fluent, even if you're learning alone.
That's such an important point, Sophia. So many learners believe they need a conversation partner to practice speaking, but in reality, the biggest step to fluency is training yourself to speak, even when you're alone. Think of it like preparing for a speech or a performance. Before an actor goes on stage, they practice their lines by themselves. Before a musician performs in front of an audience, they practice alone. Learning English is no different. If you can make speaking out loud a daily habit, you'll improve much faster than if you wait for the perfect moment to practice with someone.
Exactly, so let's break down how you can build this habit in just 5 minutes a day. The first method? Talking to yourself. I know it sounds a little strange, but trust me, this technique works. The idea is simple. Narrate your daily activities in English. For example, when you wake up in the morning, say out loud, "Okay, I'm getting out of bed. Now I'm making coffee. The coffee smells amazing. I need to leave for work in 30 minutes. You're not having a conversation with anyone, but you're still training your brain to think and speak in English.
That's such a great tip, Sophia. And here's what's really interesting. Your brain doesn't care if you're talking to yourself or to another person. As long as you're forming sentences out loud, you're still improving your fluency. And the best part? You can do this anywhere, anytime. You can narrate what you're doing while cooking, cleaning, walking to work, or even just sitting at your desk. The goal is to get comfortable speaking without overthinking. The more you do this, the more natural it will feel.
That's right. And here's another great method. Recording your voice. Many learners avoid this because they feel embarrassed when they hear themselves speak. But let me tell you, recording yourself is one of the most effective ways to improve. When you record your voice and listen back, you can identify pronunciation mistakes, notice which words you hesitate on, and track your improvement over time.
Absolutely. Let's say you're practicing describing your morning routine. You can record yourself saying something like, "Today, I woke up early, made some tea, and read a book before going to work." Then, listen to your recording. Does it sound natural? Do you notice any pauses or words that were difficult to pronounce? The next time you record, try saying the same sentence more smoothly and confidently. Over time, you'll start to hear a big difference in your fluency.
That's such a simple but effective habit. And to make it even easier, you can use a voice memo app on your phone to record short, 1-minute speaking exercises. Here's a fun challenge for our listeners. Pause this podcast right now and describe what's around you in English. Look around your room or wherever you are and say out loud, "I see a desk with a laptop on it. There's a cup of coffee next to it. The window is open, and I can hear birds outside."
Yes. And if you really want to push yourself, record what you said, listen back, and try to improve it. Maybe the first time you hesitated or got stuck on a word. That's totally fine. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. The more you do this, the easier it will become to think and speak in English naturally.
And let's not forget about shadowing. We talked about this technique in previous episodes, but it's one of the best ways to train your speaking muscles. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating exactly what they say. Same speed, same pronunciation, same intonation. This helps you sound more natural and confident when you speak.
Yes, and you can do this with podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos, or even movies. Just choose a short sentence, play it, and repeat it immediately. Try to copy the speaker exactly. If they say, "Hey, how's it going?" don't just say the words, match their tone and speed. This is a fantastic way to improve your pronunciation and rhythm in English.
Okay, let's summarize what we've learned in this chapter. If you want to improve your speaking in just 5 minutes a day, here's what you can do. 1. Talk to yourself. Narrate your daily activities out loud. 2. Record your voice. Listen back and track your progress. 3. Describe what's around you. Say simple sentences about your environment. 4. Shadow native speakers. Repeat sentences exactly like a native.
These methods are simple, but if you do them consistently, you'll see huge improvements in your fluency. And remember, you don't need a speaking partner to get better. The most important thing is to use your voice every single day.
Chapter 5. The Power of Thinking in English. One of the biggest challenges English learners face is that they still think in their native language first, then translate into English before speaking. This slows down the conversation and makes you hesitate. But if you want to speak English fluently, you need to start thinking in English naturally.
That's so true, Sophia. Many learners tell us, "I understand English, but when I try to speak, I pause too much." The reason? Their brain is working extra hard. First, forming the sentence in their native language, then translating it, then checking the grammar before they say it. That takes too long. Fluent speakers don't translate. Instead, they think directly in English and respond instantly. And today, we're going to show you exactly how to train your brain to do that.
Let's start with a simple thought exercise. Right now, think about your morning routine. Most learners would naturally think in their native language. I woke up, I brushed my teeth, I made breakfast. But instead of translating, try this. Imagine the words and actions in English as you think. Picture yourself waking up and just say in your mind, wake up, stretch, brush teeth, make coffee. You don't need full, complex sentences in your head, just keywords and phrases. This will train your brain to recognize English words faster without needing to translate.
That's such a powerful exercise. And you can do this throughout your day. Instead of thinking, "I need to go to the store to buy some vegetables," in your native language first, try thinking directly in English. Go to store. Buy vegetables. Cook dinner. This method is called keyword thinking, and it helps you train your brain to respond in English much faster. You're skipping the translation step and getting straight to real communication.
I love that. And here's another technique that works really well. Describe things around you in English. If you're sitting in a cafe, look around and say in your head, "There's a man drinking coffee. The waitress is carrying a tray. The cafe is busy today." This simple habit forces your brain to process English faster and builds fluency naturally.
That's such an easy way to bring English into your daily life. And here's another super effective technique, asking yourself questions in English. For example, instead of thinking, "What am I going to do today?" in your native language, ask yourself directly in English. "What's my plan today? What time do I need to leave? What should I cook for dinner?" Even if you're just thinking to yourself, you're practicing English sentence structures without needing a conversation partner.
Yes. And one more fun way to think in English is to talk to yourself in your mind. Imagine having an inner dialogue in English about your day. You can even pretend you're explaining your plans to a friend. So today, I have a meeting at 10 a.m., then I'll grab lunch. Maybe I'll go for a walk in the evening. It might feel strange at first, but this technique helps your brain get used to forming English sentences naturally without stress.
That's such a good strategy. And here's one more trick, using mental flashcards. Let's say you just learned the word impressive. Instead of writing it down and forgetting about it, try this. 1. Think of a situation where you can use the word. For example, if you saw a beautiful painting, say in your mind, "That painting is impressive." Use the word in different situations. His presentation was impressive. 3. Challenge yourself to use it at least 3 times in your thoughts that day. The more you use a word in your thoughts, the faster it becomes part of your active vocabulary.
Wow, we've covered so many great techniques. Let's do a quick recap. If you want to train your brain to think in English, try these daily habits. 1. Keyword thinking. Instead of full translations, think in short English words and phrases. 2. Describe what's around you. Look at your environment and form simple English sentences in your mind. 3. Ask yourself questions. Think in English when planning your day or making decisions. 4. Inner dialogue. Pretend you're explaining things to a friend in English. 5. Mental flashcards. Use new words in your thoughts throughout the day.
And remember, fluency is not about knowing big, complicated words. It's about being able to think and respond quickly. If you practice these exercises every day, your brain will start thinking in English naturally, without hesitation.
Chapter 6. Building vocabulary. Naturally. One of the biggest struggles for English learners is expanding vocabulary without memorizing endless word lists. I know many learners who try to learn 20 new words a day, writing them down in a notebook, but then a week later, they forget them all. So, Adam, how can learners build vocabulary naturally, without cramming or feeling overwhelmed?
That's a great question, Sophia. The key is learning words in context, instead of just memorizing random words with no connection. For example, let's take the word happy. Instead of just learning it by itself, connect it to related words. Happy, happiness, unhappy, happily. Now, instead of learning just one word, you've learned 4. You understand how the word changes in different situations. This makes it much easier to remember and use in real life.
That's such an effective strategy. And here's another one. Use new words immediately. The fastest way to remember a new word is to put it into sentences right away. Let's say you learn the word delighted. Instead of just writing it down, try this. Check mark. I'm delighted to meet you. She was delighted with her birthday gift. I felt delighted when I passed my English exam. By using a new word 3 times in different contexts, you reinforce it in your brain.
That's such a powerful technique. And it's even better if you can use the new word in a real conversation. Imagine you just learned the word delicious. The next time you eat something tasty, instead of saying, "This is good," say, "This is delicious." The more you connect words to real experiences, the stronger your memory becomes.
And if you don't have someone to practice with, talk to yourself. Describe things around you using new words. If you just learned the word gigantic, look around and find something big, maybe a building, a tree, or a suitcase, and say, "That tree is gigantic."
Yes. And here's another great tip. Learn words in word families. Instead of just memorizing individual words, learn how they are connected. For example, act, actor, action, active, activity. Teach, teacher, teaching, taught now. When you learn one word, you're automatically learning 5.
That's such a smart way to expand vocabulary naturally. And another tip. Use vocabulary in storytelling. Instead of just memorizing words, try to create a short story using new words. For example, let's say you're learning these words: exciting, travel, explore, journey. Instead of just repeating them, create a short story in your mind. Last summer, I went on an exciting journey. I traveled to 3 different countries and explored many beautiful places. When you connect words in a meaningful way, your brain stores them much better.
I love that. And here's one more fun method. Use images to learn words. Instead of just writing down a word, look for a picture that represents it. For example, if you're learning the word stormy, find a picture of a storm. Every time you see that image, the word will come to mind.
Yes, visual memory is so powerful. And let's not forget one of the most important ways to build vocabulary naturally: reading. When you read books, articles, or even social media posts in English, you see how words are actually used.
Exactly. And you don't have to read complicated books. Even short articles, blog posts, or captions on Instagram can introduce you to new, useful vocabulary. The key is to notice new words and try using them yourself.
Chapter 7. Listening like a native speaker. Listening is one of the biggest challenges for English learners, and for a good reason. Have you ever tried watching an English movie or listening to a podcast, and suddenly the words just blur together? You catch a few words here and there, but overall it feels too fast, too unclear, and by the time you process one sentence, they've already moved on to the next. It's frustrating, right? If this has happened to you, don't worry. You're not alone. Many learners feel confident when listening to slow, clear English, but the moment native speakers start talking naturally, they struggle to keep up. So, Adam, why does this happen? And what can learners do to improve their listening?
That's such a great question, Sophia, and I'm sure many of our listeners can relate. The reason why native English feels too fast isn't because it actually is fast. It's because of something called connected speech. Let me explain with an example. In a textbook, you might read, "Check mark, what are you going to do?" But in real life, a native speaker doesn't say it that way. Instead, it sounds like, "Check mark, what are you going to do?" The words blend together and become one smooth phrase. Native speakers don't pause between every word. They connect them, shorten them, and sometimes even drop sounds completely.
That's exactly why learners struggle. You might recognize individual words like what, are, you, but when spoken quickly, your brain doesn't separate them correctly. And if you're not used to this, it feels impossible to keep up. But the good news is, you can train your ears to understand fast, natural English. The trick is not to slow it down, but instead to train your brain to process it faster. Listeners, let me ask you, when you first heard a new song, did you memorize the lyrics immediately? No, right? You probably listened to it a few times before the words started making sense. The same happens with English listening. It's a skill, and like any skill, it gets better with practice.
That's a great example, Sophia. And that brings us to one of the best techniques for improving listening: repetition listening. Instead of listening to something once and feeling frustrated, listen to it multiple times with different goals. Here's how you do it. 1. First listen. Just focus on the general meaning. Don't try to catch every word. Ask yourself, what's the main idea? Second listen. Now, focus on the details. Try to catch a few key words and phrases. Third, listen. Write down any new words you hear and check their meaning. 4. Final listen. Play it again and repeat along with the speaker, mimicking their pronunciation. Listeners, have you ever tried this? If not, today's your chance. Pick a short video, maybe a 1-minute clip from YouTube, and listen to it 4 times using this method.
That's such an effective technique. And speaking of repeating, another game-changing method is shadowing. Shadowing means you listen and repeat immediately after the speaker, trying to copy the pronunciation, speed, and rhythm. For example, if you hear someone say, That movie was amazing. You should instantly repeat, check mark, that movie was amazing. Try to match the intonation, emotion, and flow of the speaker. It's like an actor learning their lines. They don't just say the words, they say them with feeling.
That's such an important point. A lot of learners think pronunciation is just about saying the sounds correctly, but that's only half of it. The real magic happens when you match the tone and natural rhythm of native speakers. Here's an example. Imagine two people saying the phrase, check mark. Oh, really? Person A says it flat and robotic. Oh, really? Person B adds natural intonation. Oh, really? The second one sounds more like a real conversation, right? That's because intonation and rhythm make a huge difference in how natural your English sounds.
Yes. And for our listeners, practice this right now. Choose a short sentence from any English video, pause it, and repeat it with the same rhythm and emotion. It might feel strange at first, but the more you do it, the more natural and fluent you'll sound. And here's another tip. Don't always rely on subtitles. Many learners watch English content with subtitles all the time, but this can actually slow you down. Instead, try this. Checkmark first. Watch with subtitles to understand the meaning. Then turn them off and listen again, training your ears to catch words naturally.
That's a game changer, Sophia. And let's not forget, the goal is not to understand every single word. Even native speakers don't hear every word in a conversation. Instead, they focus on the overall meaning. Think about it. If someone says, "Hey, do you want to grab some food later?" and you only hear eat food later, you still understand the message. This is how you should train your ears. Focus on the big picture, not every tiny word.
Chapter 8. Ending your day in English. Let's talk about something that most English learners forget. How to end your day in English. We always focus on learning in the morning or practicing throughout the day, but what you do before bed is just as important. Your brain actually processes and strengthens memories while you sleep. Have you ever noticed that if you study something right before bed, you remember it better the next day? That's because your brain organizes and stores new information during sleep. So if you make English a part of your bedtime routine, you're training your brain to remember vocabulary, sentence structures, and new expressions more effectively. So, Adam, what are some easy but powerful ways learners can use English at night?
That's a great question, Sophia. Ending your day in English doesn't mean you have to study for hours. Instead, just spend 5 to 10 minutes reviewing what you learned during the day. Here are 2 simple but powerful techniques that can help learners improve their English at night. Write a short journal entry. Before going to bed, write about your day in English. It doesn't have to be long. Even 3 sentences is enough. Review 3 to 5 new words. Go through the new vocabulary you learned that day and say them out loud. Let's say you had a normal day at work or school. Instead of just going to sleep, take a moment to write something simple like, "Today was a busy day. I had a lot of work to do, but I managed to finish everything on time. Now, I feel tired but happy." This small habit helps you think in English and reinforce sentence structures.
That's such an easy but effective technique. And I love the idea of reviewing just 3 to 5 words instead of trying to memorize long vocabulary lists. Learners often make the mistake of cramming too much information at once. But if you focus on just a few words per night, you'll remember them much better. Here's an example. Let's say today you learned these 3 words: delighted, very happy, struggle, to have difficulty with something, accomplishment, something you achieve. Instead of just reading them once and forgetting them, say them out loud before bed and try using them in simple sentences. I was delighted when I got good news today. I struggle with listening to fast English, but I'm improving. Finishing my project was a great accomplishment. This small step will make sure these words stay in your memory instead of disappearing the next day.
Exactly. And if you want to make it even more fun and interactive, Try recording a voice note instead of writing. Some people don't like journaling, but they enjoy speaking. So, grab your phone and record yourself talking about your day in English. Another great tip is to listen to English before sleeping. You can check a listen to an English podcast while lying in bed. Watch a short English video with subtitles off. Play an English audiobook in the background while relaxing. Even if you're not actively studying, your brain is still absorbing English sounds and patterns.
Yes. And don't forget positive reinforcement before bed. Say one thing you did well in English today. Maybe you had a short conversation in English. Maybe you learned a new phrase, or maybe you just listened to this podcast. Whatever it is, recognize your progress. That's it for today. Remember, consistency is the key. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day can transform your English.
Pick one habit from today's episode and start it right now. Small steps lead to big results.
If you found this helpful, subscribe, share, and keep practicing. Fluency is within your reach.
Until next time, keep learning and stay confident. See you in the next episode.